Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to my regular update from what's going on in Washington. It's been a busy last 24 hours. Last night, I sat through the longest State of the Union speech ever, and I got to tell you, it was pretty painful. The notion, matter of fact, my understanding is the fact checkers had so many falsehoods that they had to correct that was a new record as well. Unfortunately, we heard from Donald Trump an effort to double down on the policies that are already wreaking havoc in our economy. I'd point out that while the market's kind of flat today, we've seen most of the stock gains that came since his election wiped out because of these tariffs against, candidly, two of our closest partners, Canada and Mexico, that at the end of the day, American consumers are going to pay. That's going to drive up the cost, my understanding of cars, about $12,000 in some cases. It will drive up cost of building materials, so we get a lot of lumber from Canada. It will drive up the cost of food, and again, this was a guy that was supposed to be elected on the basis of bringing down grocery prices. The opposite is taking place. It's one of the reasons why I'm proud to join my friend of 40 years, Tim Kaine, where he's going to contest, frankly, this national emergency declaration against Canada. Does anybody really believe Canada is our enemy? And the truth is, the data shows there's more fentanyl. We need to end fentanyl coming into America, but there's more fentanyl going from America to Canada than vice versa. So he will be bringing a suit against that and legislation against that, and I will join him on that effort. On the international front, we didn't hear much because it's been, candidly, an embarrassment for the country over the last 10 days when America suddenly votes with countries like Russia, Iran, North Korea, Nicaragua denying the truth of who started the war in Ukraine. And now the fact that the president has arbitrarily cut off not only military assistance, but also intelligence sharing with Ukraine. That's something that you can't turn back on overnight. And other than trying to force Ukraine into some circumstance where Russia and Putin is viewed as victorious, which is not in our country's interest, we heard very little from the president on that topic, as well as the fact of how he has burned relations with literally democracies and allies all over the world. It's not been a great week for democracies. On the question of any kind of reaching out that you normally at least pay some respect to outreach for folks who didn't vote for you, we heard nothing but a doubling down of a MAGA script. And I particularly think, and those of us in Virginia where we've got such high number of federal employees, again, I was embarrassed that, for example, my guest, who had been an educator, spent years trying to become a park ranger at the Fredericksburg battlefield, was a cancer survivor, took a pay cut to become a park ranger. She's now lost her job with no warning, lost her health insurance, and the complete disrespect to the literally thousands of federal workers, a third of whom are veterans, was remarkable. And the free rein he's given to Elon Musk and the Doge Bros, it will take a long time for recovery. If there was a way that we were actually thinking about smart budget cuts or reforms, count me in. I go back to the point when I was governor, we got named best managed state, best state for business, and we were still allowed to be named best state for public education. You don't do that by traumatizing the workforce, which again, I'm not making this up. Trump's OMB director, Vogt, thought that was his goal with the federal workforce. Anybody who's run anything, and I say this is not only as a former governor, but a former business guy, traumatizing your workforce isn't a good way to get better production. So the one thing we did hear was that Trump is going to double down on these actions. He's going to unleash Musk even more. And I think that spells real economic chaos for Virginia. It spells enormous economic challenge for the whole country in terms of prices. We've already seen, I met with some of the senior leadership from Virginia Tech today. They've seen about a 30% decline, particularly from Northern Virginia families, of committing to college next year. Why? Well, because of layoffs, the threat of layoffs, if you're a government contractor, not just a federal employee, and you suddenly start seeing less Virginians go on to college or delay their education due to financial stress. That doesn't help Virginia in terms of our competitive stance for vis-a-vis the rest of the country and, frankly, for the rest of the world. So it was a disappointing night in all across the board, but I'd be happy to take your questions. So why don't I go to Laura now and start taking questions.
Senator, our first question is Mitchell Miller with WTOP.
Thanks a lot for joining us, Senator. There is a new report that's just out, and I wish I could give you more details related to it, but the Associated Press is reporting that there is a plan circulating within the administration to ultimately cut 80,000 jobs from the Veterans Affairs Department, essentially taking it back to the 2019 levels that it was at. In light of some of the other things that you've mentioned with the military veterans, I just would like to get your reaction to
Mitchell,
that.
I mean, one thing about veterans is they got great memories, and they are very strong in terms of advocating for the rights that they deserve. I mean, we have a sacred obligation for those men and women that have defended our country and their families to honor the commitment that we're going to take care of, for example, their health care and other benefits they earned. And I can tell you, this has already taken effect, these cuts. We've seen a couple thousand veteran VA officials cut already. On Friday, I was in Fredericksburg for the opening of this wonderful new health center. It literally took us 10 years to get that center built. It's the largest, non-stayover, non-hospital health center in the whole country. And it's only about a third staffed. So they weren't supposed to staff 100% day one, but do you really think we're going to get folks to come work there when you see the threat of cutting back anybody that's a probationary employee? That means in the first 2 years. It is disrespectful to our veterans. It flies in complete face of the, you can't believe what Trump says, look at what he does. And Mitchell, as you know, to make matters worse, about a third of our federal workers are veterans. We have the highest concentration of veterans per capita of anywhere in the country. So you're getting a double whammy. You're not only potentially losing your health care and other benefits, or having them slowed down so far by a VA that does need reform, but needs reform that's more customer friendly, and you can't cut that many people and deliver that service, and you've got the very real threat that you could be in danger of losing your job. It's wrong, it's disrespectful to our veterans, and they deserve better. And I hope this might be finally an issue where my Republican colleagues who love to say they support the military will actually speak up rather than cowering behind Elon Musk's actions.
Senator, our next question is Hannah Brandt with Nexstar.
Hi, Senator Warner. I hear what you're saying, and you're kind of laying out the threats that you believe the Trump administration poses. But do you think Democrats need to do more to stand up to what you see as threats?
Listen, we are voting against the legislation. We are trying to call into question. I'd urge you to look at my testimony today and in the hearing against the number 2 at OMB, where there's the center of traumatizing our workforce. But in a democracy, you got to get the majority. And we only need 3 folks in the Senate to vote with us, or 3 folks in the House, or 4 folks in the Senate. I just spoke to a lot of our Treasury employees who keep our data safe. They also, this union represents our food safety folks, IRS. I beg them, we're going to fight against these actions. We're going to bring lawsuits, but they need to bring their voices to Republican members of Congress. Or, I think we may start to see breaks, from local elected Republican officials. If you're in the Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania, Stafford, Caroline King George area, and you got veterans that were supposed to get appointments at this new center, but they can't because it's not adequately staffed and people don't want to work at the VA because they're afraid of getting fired. I hope local elected officials will step up. I mean, the center's actually in Spotsylvania County. Spotsylvania County has put up a ton of dough. I hope they will call into account their members of Congress and say, hey, we did our share. The feds